Okay, good afternoon. It's another day and the beginning of a brand new week. We are grateful to God for this new week. We are grateful to you also for taking time off to join us right here on MX24 TV. This is Opposing Views. My name is Kwabena Chenchen. I know on this show we try to pay a lot of attention to some of the critical issues that matter to you and I. And so today, as we often do, we want to pay attention to something very critical happening in the country and of course elsewhere as well. And it's coming at a time when the issue of violence, gun violence in particular, appears to be quite rife elsewhere. So for instance, in the US, there have been a lot of incidents of gun violence. Recently, there was a similar thing in Paris. There have been some in several other countries in the world. And so today, as we take a look at a particular report that has been put out by the Bureau of Public Safety, we want to pay critical attention to Ghana's focus on guns and whether we are doing enough to protect people from being hurt by persons who just carry guns and wield them, go about destroying families and other lives. And so when we return from this break, I will take you through that report put out by the Bureau of Public Safety, which highlights some very, very critical things and suggests that much as violence may be, or crime in general may be on the decrease, the use of guns and other such weapons is actually on the increase. We'll be right back. Okay, so we are welcome back, and it's time for us to delve into our topic for the day. And like I mentioned to you, today we want to focus on the proliferation of arms, and the question we are asking you out there and everybody else watching is whether or not we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Yeah, because today it may not be much of a problem to you, but that's how it started somewhere in Kansas or somewhere in say, Gotham in the United States. Now, it's a big deal there. It's a major issue there, to the extent that there are reports that for every 3 days or so, someone in the US dies from such attacks, gun violence, most importantly. So let me, like I mentioned, start by taking you through a few things. So there's a report that has been churned out by the Bureau of Public Safety, and the report has some very, very key findings. We have highlights of those findings, which we're going to put on the screen for you shortly, and then I'll take you through that. And then also, while we do that, we get to appreciate a lot more from those who put together this report, and this was put together by the Bureau of Public Safety. Now, take a look at this on your screen right now. It says, preferred offensive tools/weapon for the year in review, and the year was 2020. Now, for those who commit a lot of crimes in the country, according to this report, for the year 2020, 51% of them used guns. 32% of the number focused on using knives and machetes, and 17% focused on other gadgets or other devices. Now, if you remember or if you recall, there was an incident a few weeks ago where a military officer was attacked by some land guards or so. He was literally butchered. They actually used a lot of cutlasses and the like on him. So it's pretty interesting. Now take a look at this. This is a comparison of the years the offensive weapons and tools between 2020 and 2019. Now the blue indicates the year 2019, and then the orange for the year 2020. That's the year under review. So if you take a look at it, for the guns, it moved up from 135 to 165. For knives and machetes, again, moved up from 99 to 106. And for others, it came down from 62 to 54. Mind you, these are reported cases. All of these statistics are statistics of reported cases in Ghana. They are not, should I say, the actual cases, because again, the number will be so much higher than what we are seeing here. But again, these are the reported cases. So this is the second slide I'm showing to you. Let's move on to the third one. And then we can begin to understand really why we have decided to pay attention to this. Now, what we showed you was for 2019 in comparison to 2020. Now, 2018 in comparison to 2019, the top 3 most reported cases from crime to violent crime and then transportation. The biggest one is violent crime, and it moved up from 81 to 87. Crime shot up from 16 to 53. That's almost 3 times the number. And cases of crime as related to transportation also moved up from 29 to 32 between 2018 and 2019. Again, some very interesting statistic there. I'll take you to the next slide. And this is quite, well, I think you perhaps may not see it so much, but okay. It's also a breakdown of the violent crime, and you can see the numbers as have been showed there on the screen in that very infographic, right? To the next one. And then also, while we do that, I'm just letting you know that we'll be speaking to the Bureau of Public Safety in a short while so that they will help us understand what they have gathered so far. So I'm sure you are seeing a lot of numbers and you don't even understand what these numbers are, right? So it's about the frequency of these cases. Now, how frequently are people attacked? Are such things happening in this country? It's about the frequency. So take a look at this. From January to December, violent crimes, that's the emphasis, violent crimes. The total figure there is what? 1,221. That's for the entire crimes that have happened. So from police arrest to violent crimes to crime, fire and workplace, civil disturbances and the like, that's 1,221. Now, when it comes to violent crimes, that is 377. It's only second to police arrests. And you know, police arrests range from quite a number of things to. Okay, so that's pretty interesting. So these are all statistics that we need to put our minds to as we begin to delve into the conversation. Subsequently, as we continue with our conversation, we will bring you a lot more data and statistics to let you appreciate how much of a problem this may likely be and why perhaps we need to begin to have a conversation around it at this particular point in time. So in a brief while, I'll be interacting with the Head of Programs for the Ghana National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. Again, the Executive Director for the Bureau of Public Safety will also be joining us for a conversation. And then a Foreign Policy and Security Analyst, I'm sure a lot of you know him. He's been on the show a few times already, Adib Sani. He will also help us understand the perspective from the security analyst's point of view. So let me now introduce, I've already mentioned to you Adib Sani, but also joining us is Johnson Asante-Chum, who is Head of Programs for the Ghana National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. Gentlemen, good afternoon. Many thanks for joining us today.
Good afternoon, and thank you for having us.
Fantastic. In a brief while, though, we'll also go to Nana Yawakwada for him to take us through this very report. But I've just given you highlights of the report, and I've done a bit of a comparison between what pertained in 2020 vis-a-vis that of 2019, and then even in some instances 2018. But let me start with Adib. Adib, well, this is your space. Again, I keep saying I'm not an expert. Sometimes you don't even understand what it is we see. But taking a look at the numbers as have been put out there so far, what are your general impressions of how perhaps Ghana as a whole is handling issues of security?
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity, and a very good afternoon to your viewers.
Great.
In the past, I have categorically, without mincing words, said over and over again that crime is on the increase since 2017. Not just according to the Bureau of Public Safety, but according to reports, statistics published by the Ghana Police Service, according to the U.S. Department of State. I remember in 2019, they published a travel advisory warning to Ghana, and the latest one that was published in September 2020 pointed to the fact that crime is on the increase, especially violent crime. So you see, when we speak to these issues from the scientific expert perspective, then you have politicians such as the National Security Minister going before Parliament to say that, no, Ghana is safe. The crime rate is reducing. Meanwhile, it was increasing by the day. On an annual basis in Ghana, we have over 500 Ghanaians murdered. The rate of proliferation of small arms and light weapons is assuming certain proportions that we have never seen in the history of the country. And so some of these statistics are not surprising to me. But what is pleasantly surprising to me is the fact that the murder rate seems to have reduced. And I'm not so shocked or too surprised about it, because I've seen some improvements within the whole security setup. You know, I don't hesitate in calling a spade a spade.
Indeed.
And at the same time, I don't hesitate in giving Caesar what is his. A lot of interventions have been put on the ground, particularly with the number of CCTV cameras we're seeing all over town. You see, CCTV cameras are not meant to just play back so we see who perpetrated the crime. It is meant to deter. If we had these CCTV cameras in operation, at the time Ahmed Swale was murdered, by now we would have gotten the killers. Or at the time Fenwick Autry, or J.B. Dankwa, or Madam Josephine Asante of the Ghana Port and Harbours Authority. Unfortunately, we didn't have them, but now the world is changing. When you go to China, for instance, they have over 700 million cameras all across the length and breadth of the country, and it's helping to a very large extent fight crime. UK, particularly London, has the highest number of cameras per capita than any other country on the surface of the planet, and it has worked to a very large extent in stemming the tide of crime and violence, especially in the suburbs. So it was quite pleasant to hear that the National Security Ministry has instituted that intervention to have cameras positioned at vantage points all across the length and breadth of Accra and other major cities and towns in the country. Secondly, we have seen an improvement in intelligence gathering, even though it's not the very best. We've seen some improvement in border security, but the problem is a lot of the proliferation still happens at the unapproved routes. And I understand from Accra towards Aflao, there are about 300 unapproved routes. So the bad guys don't come to the main process and go like, knock, knock, I'm coming in with guns. No, they use those unapproved routes. And I think it is important we pay much more attention to these routes. But overall, my brother, we can make better strides. We can chalk better successes if we improve crime and investigation, if we dedicate or commit resources towards what we call in criminology situational crime prevention, that is creating an atmosphere or an environment where potential criminals will be disincentivized from committing the crime in the first place. And one of those is to improve crime and investigation. So before you perpetrate the crime, knowing full well that, hey, Ghana, they mean business, you dare not mess with them. If I perpetrate this crime, the likelihood or the probability that I'll be caught is high. They are discouraged from committing the crime. But on an annual basis or on daily basis, so to speak, if crimes are committed and investigation is porous, it's so manual rather than the use of digital means, which invariably makes it difficult for us to catch these bad guys. They will be encouraged to, into committing more of these crimes.
Okay. All right. Adib, thank you. Thank you for those preliminary words. You've taken us a bit further than I even anticipated, but that's good. At this point, let me bring in Nanaya Akwada because his team put together this very report, and I'm very impressed with what I saw. And they've been very consistent in helping us appreciate our security situation in the country. So Nanaya, kudos to you and the team. But since you have joined us, let me begin by asking what the scope of this report is and what went into gathering such data. And as you gathered the data, what was the analysis, the trend analysis you saw? Let's say over a period of, say, 5 years, if you are to do a bit of a comparison. Where do we stand as a country as far as security is concerned?
I think your question is really loaded. And
it's a 3-in-1 question.
It's very, very loaded. I think it's just, yet you want to see it as one question. You have asked the scope, and I want to quickly brief your audience that we took 10, broad categories, to represent public safety and crime. So we looked at crime, we looked at violent crime, fires and industrial work-related incidents, transportation-related incidents, civil disturbances, police officer casualty, which some other media houses have expressed interest in, police brutality, police arrest efforts, natural disasters, and general incidents. So there are 10 indices, if you like, that we were looking at. And so most of the percentages that we strive is over all of these 10 areas.
Okay.
So when we say that crime or violent crime has reduced, then we are comparing that against some other public safety indicators.
Okay.
And you asked what went into this. This is an exercise that is done on a daily basis, scouting online portals of 10 major or popular TV and radio station portals. These are scouted on a daily basis, including weekends and holidays. And we pull down these stories, verify them or validate them over a 72-hour window, after which, if we are unable to validate it, i.e. get any official response from a state agency within this or physically verify the story ourselves, we log it out of our data piece. And so that's what went into putting this data together. Of course, afterwards, then we come and then, sift through, verify, validate, categorize them, and then begin our analysis. And so what you have there, you realize that we're done by 31st December. It's taking us 3 months to put this data out there because we went through a very thorough process of analysis.
Okay, that's good. And I'm glad you give us this breakdown, so it helps us appreciate how much work has gone into this. Again, in doing the breakdown, you make reference to certain things. So issues of crime, violent crime, and all. So these are the separations. So for the layman like myself, as we sit and watch or read or listen to issues of crime, to us, crime is crime. How different is crime from violent crime? And looking at the statistics, it appears violent crime is on the increase. Perhaps you could hazard a guess as to why that's the case.
Okay, I'm sorry, but your question is a bit vague. I did not get
okay. So the difference between crime and violent crime, that's why I want a bit of an education there so that myself and my audience can all appreciate what that difference is.
Yeah. So without boring your viewers with long theory, and an action like impersonation is crime.
Okay.
An action like fraud, like Momo fraud, is crime. Armed robbery is violent crime. When someone uses force, okay, against someone is violent crime. So in our categorization, an action like rape is a violent crime. Sexual abuse is a violent crime. Armed robbery is violent crime. Everything, action that you take against another person or his property is viewed with force, by use of force, it's violent crime. That's why you have, in the breakdown the categories, we have an item, aggravated assault.
Yeah.
So whereas if I insult you and I get at you, I spit on you, I don't use any force. But once I lift up a tool against you, it's categorized as violent crime. So every time we mention crime and violent crime, this is basically what we're trying to do. And if you look at the report, you'll find out also that the casualties arising out of crime is far, smaller than the casualties arising out of violent crime. So whereas violent crime is probably giving us 283 deaths, we have crime giving us just 6 deaths.
Okay.
So basically, that is what it is. And if you get on our website, in our very first report in 2017, most of these things have been properly defined and put in context.
Right. So let me ask this though. I know you'd have to leave us in a bit, but I just want us to appreciate a few things before you do, and then I can have my colleague panelists take us through a lot more. Now, as I read here, I see a reduction in violent crimes, a reduction in the period by 8%. And then I also see, I'll come to this in a bit. I just wanted to bring this up first. This is about the manslaughter case. And this is also about, so this is the question though. The numbers are going down. Generally, based on the reports, maybe I didn't get it right, but if I did, it suggests as though crime is on the decline. Is that the case? Am I accurate in any way?
Well, you are accurate. And I let me be quick to put in perspective, because I heard my colleague Adi make mention that in the last report that we issued, I think sometime in July last year, we indicated that crime was on the rise at the time that the minister said crime was actually on the decline. This is the first time in 4 years, or if you like, since the inception of the BPS Public Safety Crime and Public Safety and Crime report. This is the first time that we have seen violent crime, take a dip. And we have said that it could be due to several factors. We have observed a very steep increase in police arrest efforts.
Okay.
I mean, in 2020, 2019, if you compare, there's been a 21% increase in police efforts. That is the known. The unknown could be that last year we were struck with COVID. It was a very unique year. Restrictions were imposed on the citizenry, so it affected flow of human traffic,
including operations of robbers and the like.
They move and commit crime. So they were not moving, so they were not committing crime.
I see.
It's also possible that because last year was an election year, I think it's the first time that the public safety crime report is being put together or monitored in an election year. So because it was an election year, for a greater part of the year, maybe half year, security had, beefed up.
But actually, the statistics suggest that in election years, crime is actually on the increase. And last year was actually the first time in several election years, that crime actually went down comparatively.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's why I would say that it's a unique year. But I would still want to give it to the police administration. I want to insist that if there is something something different that they are doing, they better continue doing it. Those CCTV cameras that Adib mentioned,
yeah.
I think they are doing a great job. We look forward to the police over time beginning to release footages of persons who have been caught by these cameras or persons who have perpetrated crime and by aid of these cameras have been caught. We look forward for the state to start releasing those footages from time to time, just as it is done across the whole world. I believe that when people begin to see these footages and know that these white poles are not decorative pieces littered across the city, they will think twice before perpetrating crime.
Okay. Anel, thank you. I'll come to you again before you finally leave us. But let me now also bring in Johnson Asante-Chum. Mind you, Johnson Asante-Chum is head of programs at the Ghana National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. Mr. Asante, good afternoon. There's an interesting statistic here, curled from Mr. Akwade's report. Now, much as it says, overall, violent crime cases reported in year 2020 decreased by 8%. It goes on to say that associated deaths and injuries respectively increased by 14% and 63%. And for me, that's very critical. Again, it says here, armed criminals were more likely to use their tools, which is guns, machetes, and other offensive tools or weapons in the year 2020 than in the year 2019. I think the percentage here was about 51% or so, if I'm right. And Anil, maybe you can help correct me. Was that the case? 51%, right?
Yes, it's
okay.
50%.
All right. Okay. So now I need to go to the gentleman who handles the guns, the small arms, and they are the ones responsible for us not having so many guns, particularly if we are not licensed to even have guns. Why are we even holding the guns anyway to begin with? So, Mr. Santi, is this trend not worrying? The fact that it appears, maybe I'm wrong, but it appears as though there's a lot of access to some of these weapons. And so in the perpetration of such crimes, it becomes the go-to tool for such nefarious activities.
Thank you very much for having me, and good afternoon to your listeners and your viewers as well.
Thank you.
Let me quickly say that we at the Small Arms Commission are yet to see the report of the Bureau of Public Safety.
Okay.
And so commenting on it is really a little difficult from where I sit.
Okay.
However, I agree to talk to you because Nanaya just sent me a message this morning for my email to send a report. Yet to receive it. And so it's really very difficult for me speaking to the report, but to respond to your question and also to comment Nanaya and the Bureau of Public Safety for the work they have done. We are yet to go into it, but it's been going around this morning. A lot of calls are coming in. Unfortunately, because we have not read the report, it's difficult to speak to it. Having said that, I will respond to your question and also to some of the issues that have been raised. Yeah, it is true that small arms, and particularly the ones that we know here, are the go-to tools that are used in committing violent crime. And so that for us is our concern and our focus. That how do we reduce the use of weapons in the commitment of crime, which then becomes violent crime as Nanaya succinctly defined or categorized for you. So that for us is a concern. And also we look at it from the perspective that whereas violent crime seems to be going down, associated death is going up. And of course, I'm also speaking just from what you are telling me, what Nanaya is also telling us. But that is not really surprising because that is what we know, that crime generally is committed and is successful when people begin to introduce, the tools of violent crime, which is the weapon, and particularly the small arms into those crimes. And that is why we get concerned when we see a lot of people asking that we want to acquire weapons and we want to own weapons. Again, the issues of, border security and how we manage it in order to ensure that weapons don't get into the hands of wrong people has been one of the focus of the commission and, for that matter, government. And again, Adib was, very right in talking about what needs to be done. But you also need to look at it from the perspective that, yes, for the very first time in election year, we have seen crime going down, and particularly violent crime going down. That's something, commendable by whatever the security agencies and the associated agencies did in the last election in ensuring, and the last year generally, to ensure that crime and violent crime went down. We will not write off the impact of COVID-19, in ensuring that whatever happened. But be that as it may, we need to look at the positives and look at what we did right in ensuring that crime generally was reduced and violent crime went down, so that we can keep it up and do what we need to do. So we will be able to speak to Nanaya's report better when we read it, when we get the reports and he's sent to us.
So, but let me ask this though. It says, of course, you are saying you haven't read fully the report, but I'm just picking this bit for you to see if you could help us understand it. It says more than 50% of all violent crimes committed in the year 2020 involve the use of guns. Why is it so easy for people to have access to guns in Ghana? Why is that the case?
Thank you very much. So there are several factors. First of all, our geographical location, and if I say geographical location, also relating it to the neighborhood within which we find ourselves. We find ourselves very close to Cote d'Ivoire, Burkina Faso, where a lot of weapons seems to have gone, missing, so to speak, as a result of the civil war that led to the breakages or breakdown of some state armories and others. Then you also look at the incident of Libya and the movement of people from Libya through the Casamance through to Niger, Mali, Burkina Faso. And once these conflicts seem to be dying down, the protagonists who now become more or less unemployed and are looking for something to subsist on will look for safe havens to move their weapons where they can get something out and sell it to people. And therefore, coming down to our area become a good motivation for them to come and do that. But generally, the nature of the borders, as Adil mentioned earlier, has become a major concern and a major worry. And that routes from Libya through the Casamance, that is the Western Sahara area, and then coming down to Niger, Mali to Burkina Faso, has become a major transit route for illegal weapons. And then you have Cote d'Ivoire on our hands, where a lot of armories also, went down and people, took those weapons. Sadly, we have seen weapons that have also come from those areas where those weapons are state weapons that have even been marked. But we've seen those weapons in Ghana when we've arrested criminals and retrieved the weapons.
So you are saying
then
weapons belonging to the states of, say, Burkina Faso or Cote d'Ivoire, you have intercepted such weapons in Ghana because they were actually being used to perpetrate crime here in Ghana?
Cote d'Ivoire generally. Burkina Faso, I cannot confirm that, but I'm saying that the route from Libya all the way through Burkina Faso to Ghana has been very active in terms of, illicit movement of weapons. And therefore, that is a worry. And you know that the incident in Libya, we still cannot account, or the Libyan government cannot account for those weapons and where those weapons are gone to. And therefore, those are weapons that are coming through Burkina Faso, not Burkina Faso state weapons. Cote d'Ivoire, I can confirm, yes, that there are some weapons we have retrieved that has been weapons of, the state of Cote d'Ivoire in Ghana. So you look at the porous nature of the borders, and that in itself is a trend that we are very much concerned about, that these weapons are getting. Now, having said that, you also need to look at the demand factors. I've just mentioned the supply factors. You look at the demand factors, which is that, our own traditional and cultural practices make it easy for people to acquire some of these weapons.
Okay.
Then again, we have incident of, landguardism on our hands and the way we handle land issues. And so every Tom, Dick, and Harry who own land want to have some people to protect the land for them and so forth and so on. And therefore, it is easy for people now to begin to demand weapons. So these are some of the factors that we need to deal with in terms of the demand factors that bring in the weapons.
How much
Don't
of a
also
problem
forget
is this?
that
The issue of proliferation of guns into the system. How much of a problem is it from where you sit?
It is a problem. It is a problem because when you talk about guns, it is difficult, to deal with it in percentage terms. In nominal terms, just one weapon, and as you may be very much aware, the gentleman in Boulder, Colorado, just last week, went into a shopping mall with one AR-15, and he took down 10 people. In 2014, you remember the Sandy Hook incident, where a crazy person just went into the Sandy Hook school, elementary school, and took down a lot of elementary school pupils and teachers just with one weapon. So when it comes to weapons, we really don't really want to talk about percentage, but even in nominal terms, one weapon in the hand of a criminal is a problem and is dangerous. And that should be a concern to all of us. And therefore, gun proliferation is a problem no matter the numbers that you will find in people's hands. Once it gets into the hand of somebody who is not supposed to have the weapon, it is a concern and it is a worrying issue that we all must put our hand on deck to deal with.
Okay, let me. I want to.
Can I add?
Sure. Go ahead. Actually, I was even coming to you anyway. Yeah.
You remember the incident involving the young man at Kasua who, out of anger, shot 2 police officers.
Yes. Yeah.
So the question is, but assuming the gun he had is legal, how did he get it? Do we do psychological evaluation? Because, as a gun owner myself, I know how tempting using a gun sometimes is. I always tell people, if you have temper issues, you don't have any business owning a gun. Because there are rules of engagement. And you see, we have a lot of lessons to learn from America, like my colleague has rightly mentioned. There are more guns in civilian hands in America than all of the military. On an annual basis, over 30,000 Americans are killed as a result of gun-related, violence. How many 9/11s is that? And that is followed by Brazil. So we wouldn't want to go that line because our crime and investigation is not even as good as theirs. So at least they would have some degree of deterrence. So you can imagine.
Adib, let me ask this though. Let me ask this though. You say you own a weapon. What were the processes you went through in acquiring a gun? Were they as rigorous as you would expect elsewhere?
It's very laborious, I must say. According to the Arms and Ammunition Act, you're supposed to, first of all, request through the Ministry of Interior to import or to buy from a registered gun dealer. If it is approved, you go through the police processes. Then in the end, you are given a permit to purchase the weapon from a registered gun dealer. But when you purchase it, it doesn't end there because the permit only lasts for 6 months. After 6 months, you have to renew. After purchasing, you need to license the weapon. And the licensing, after you get it, it lasts for a year. So it lasts for the year, sorry. So on the 1st of every year, January, you would have to renew your license. And that is where the problem is. Most gun owners in Ghana don't renew their licenses. And that is when it becomes illegal. You get me? Because there's no need to go and renew the licenses, apart from those who are able to get the locally made ones. And that is the area we are not paying attention to, my brother. It is very, very common. When you go to the Alavanyo Nkoya part of the country, the Ashanti region, even the north, Boku, and the rest. I mean, I've had the opportunity to speak with people who tell me that, look, manufacturing guns is a talent that was handed over to us by our forefathers. And women are able to do it, children. And it was actually a lady who said that, look, if I enter my kitchen, trust me, I can cook you a gun. So that is the extent to how serious the issue is, but we don't seem to be paying attention
So
to it.
I see it in two ways. So on one leg, it is a very laborious process getting access to a gun. On the other leg, it is extremely easy to get access to a gun.
Absolutely. There's no denying that fact. I remember some time ago, I was in Tamale, and I jokingly told a friend, oh, I needed a gun. That same evening, they came with a sack. Then I opened the sack, and what I saw, I cannot even say it on TV.
So choose your choice. So many guns.
Gobsmacked.
Right.
I was absolutely gobsmacked. I was shocked. But now I've come to the realization that, look, a lot of these very sophisticated, well-organized crime syndicates are able to bring it down to sub-Saharan Africa, especially from North Africa through the volatile Sahel region. You know, according to a United States Department of State reports published in 2004, pointed to the fact that where there is no law and order, criminal gangs are able to establish foothold and are able to engage violently in arms proliferation, drugs, money laundering, etc. So because of the volatile nature, ungovernable nature of the Sahel region, they are able to find their way, and it is further consolidated by the porous nature of our borders. Bring it down, and it falls into criminal hands. And it is very dangerous for our security because they are emboldened. And some of these criminals feel the guns they have is more potent than the police. I remember some time ago, there was a robbery incident somewhere around Kaswa. After the robbery, rather than hurry and get out away from the scene, the robbers waited for the police to arrive. Then they showed them who the men really are. And they ambushed the police. So, I mean, that should tell you, they attacked broad daylight. Alaba, Kumasi, broad daylight. Everybody was present. La Paz, they killed a police officer in front of everybody. Now they go after bullion vans, for crying out loud. We know a bullion van, when it's carrying some money, always has a police officer with a loaded AK-47 rifle. Yet they are able to go after these, targets. How much less you and I?
Okay. I'll come to our gentleman from Small Arms for a bit of a reaction to this and also to help us nuance that very information you are giving us. But I want Nanaya to help me answer this question if it's possible. Nanaya, in your research, were you able to come up with a correlation between, say, access to guns and violent crimes? Is there any relationship? Nanaya, can you hear me?
Yeah, sorry. I think I had muted.
Yes, you unmuted yourself. Okay, that's fine.
I can hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Go ahead.
You were asking if in our report,
whether or not in your research you have come across a bit of a correlation between access to weapons and a corresponding effect on violent crimes.
No, we haven't done anything in that regard. It's not an area that we have actually focused on yet.
Okay.
But I think that's a very researchable area, whether people having access to guns will be motivated to commit crime or not. I believe that is an interesting subject. Maybe those students out there listening would want to take it up in a PhD or master's research. But this is purely what happens within our environment that we pick, analyze, and throw back at society.
Okay, all right. Nanea, many thanks for your time on the show today. We are really grateful you took time off to join us. Nanea Akoda is Executive Director for the Bureau of Public Safety. He joined us with those details. And I actually asked that question about the correlation between access to guns and its debilitating effect on violent crimes, because based on all the examples we have seen, or a number of them we have seen elsewhere, even in France, Charlie Hebdo and all of that, was because a number of people had access to these weapons, and so perhaps they felt they could go about doing whatever. In the US, several instances in just the past few weeks, there have been other such instances, and again, it's mostly because people have access
respond to?
Yes. Go ahead. I was actually coming to ask you a question, so yeah, go ahead. Let me hear your response.
Right. So what we know is that people who come forward to legally register the weapon hardly use it to commit crime. And as Adib said, when you talk about access, you are looking at it from two different perspectives, which is the legal access and the illegal access to guns. And mostly those who will use it to commit crime. Of course, the US case is an outlier, an extreme case that you don't want to use as an example. But what we do know is that those who come forward to legally register the weapon hardly will use it to commit crime. It is the other way around. Those who acquire illegally are the ones that are using committing.
And based on your data, what's the percentage of persons holding guns illegally vis-a-vis those holding guns legally?
Well, based on the data we have, which was what we released in 2016, in total we had about 2.3 million weapons in circulation in civilian hands. Out of that, 1.2 of them are registered with the police. And then you have 1.1 of them that we categorize as illegal weapons. Then again, the legal ones, which is the 1.2 that the police know of, the challenge there, which Adib also talked about, is that the renewal rate is extremely low, and that we have only about 40,000 owners coming forward to renew their licenses. And that is where another problem is, which is that people have come forward to register the weapons. However, they are not living to their responsibility of coming forward to renew their licenses every year. So that is where the real challenge with the legal ones also is.
Interesting. So if I understand you correctly, you are saying that much as there are 2.3 million guns in circulation, we have over 2.2 million of these guns being used illegally, technically.
1.1.
No. 1.1 is it? Yes. But of course, if you have a gun and you're supposed to register it or renew the license and you don't renew it, you're using it illegally anyway. So if you add those numbers, we have over 2.2 million guns out there.
Yes, that's the owners are not coming forward to register.
And technically, we may not even be able to trace them and even know that this person used this gun at this point wherever. We can't do that.
The commission now is working with the Ghana Police Service to make sure that we put system in place to be able to reach out to all those who are on record of having registered the weapon.
Oh, but I heard you people say this sometime last year or 2 years ago, I think. Are you still on that same call?
Yes, because strictly, and like the lawyers will say, stricto sensu, it is the duty of the police at this stage. And to get this done, you need to also get the laws that establish the commission reviewed to be able to step in to take that responsibility. And so the steps are being taken to do this, and as you said, the police have been in this business, before 1957. And that is what we have on our hands. And to be able to do that, you cannot just walk in there and do it. You need to get the legislative framework properly in place to give you the responsibility to step in and do that.
So technically, as things stand now, you are handicapped and all of us are sitting on a time bomb. That's a summary of everything.
I wouldn't stretch it that way. I would rather look at it from the positive perspective that there is collaboration between the two agencies and other agencies of government to deal with the issue.
No, but clearly your outfit is handicapped in dealing with certain things, the way and manner in which you would want to deal with it, right? Because you made
As long
reference
as,
to the
as far
law.
as the law is,
Exactly, you
as
made
far as
reference
the
to the
law
law
is
and how
concerned, as far as
exactly.
the law,
Okay, so
as far as the law is concerned, yes, to some extent.
wow, I anyway, Adi, you've been listening to the conversation and giving us some very good insights. What's the way forward? I'm very worried by the numbers I'm seeing and hearing today, and I know I've spoken to a number of people at the Small Arms Commission, and you can see they genuinely want to intervene, they genuinely want to help, but they can't. They are constrained in a lot of ways, so they are doing what they can do. But beyond that, Adi, from where you sit, what ought to be done across the length and breadth of our security apparatus?
Okay, first and foremost, let me be specific about the issue of guns.
Okay.
You see, when you take a closer look at the Arms and Ammunition Act, I think one of the articles categorically states that the IGP is supposed to have a central register of all weapons in the country. Before you get the weapon, they take your biometrics, in fact, every information about you. They follow you to your home to see where you are going to keep it, your address, the children, how you're going to manage owning a gun and making sure the safety of the children is guaranteed. They know everything about you, your pictures, your next of kin, everything. So what is preventing us from reaching out to those people who are not renewing their licenses? Obviously, someone is not doing his work. As simple as that. Let's call it spade a spade. Someone who we are paying with the taxpayers' money is not doing his work.
Someone being the IGP, you
because
say?
It's on the Sorry?
Someone being the IGP. Because based on what you're saying,
Well,
the law is very explicit that the
might not be
IGP is supposed to be the one enforcing these things.
Of course, someone who is supposed to help the IGP, what do we call it?
Oh, so the
fulfill
IGP
his
is
mandate.
helper. Okay.
And I'll put it squarely at the doorstep of the very top, the top echelons at the Ghana Police Service, because they are supposed to follow up on these people. Because I was reading a document, I think prior to the elections, when the Small Arms Commission was destroying some weapons, I think somewhere in the Western region.
Yeah.
That pointed to the fact that of the 1.2 million, only about 40,000 people renewed their licenses. That is quite distressing. So we need to look at it. Secondly, let us consider maybe if we want to legalize and perhaps regularize the activities of the local gun manufacturers rather than pretend that, oh, everything is fine. I mean, there's no problem with that. Then we might be sitting on a ticking time bomb. We have to look at it. If we want to ban it completely, yes, let's do it. And let's go after these gun manufacturers. Let us improve intelligence. Let us collaborate with the natives because they understand the terrain better than we do. Let us improve border security. That is also key. But generally, like I said, we need to improve crime and investigation. But before I go, let me go back a little to what my very good brother Nana Kwada said about the fact that last year, because of COVID, people were indoors and there were no
He says it may be a possibility. It may be a possibility.
It may be a possibility, but for your information, the hungry man is the most dangerous animal you can ever imagine. There's a direct correlation between human security and physical security. COVID-19 has affected the whole supply chain. Look, financial security, economic security, health security, environmental security, water security, food security, all of it has been affected as a result of COVID.
That's a good point.
And you would have the probability of people committing crime as a means to survival. Because of COVID, he has lost his job. you get me? I mean, and there are no opportunities like we have in the cities, like we have in the hinterland. So you have a lot of these young people coming to the urban areas in search of greener pastures. And when they see Imoro come to Accra, and then next minute Imoro is in the village with a Toyota Corolla. When myself, Adib Sani, when I come to Accra, I also expect that tomorrow I'll be in the village with a Toyota Corolla.
Indeed.
But once I get to Accra and my expectation is not well met, and I'm not able to manage it, then I become disenchanted, I become frustrated, and I become belligerent in some cases. That is where you see them becoming land guards, which is usually a precursor to being an armed robber. So there's a direct correlation. So I expected that rather crime should have been on the increase, as a result of COVID-19. But like you said, anything is possible. It could have also been the other way.
Reverse. I see. Adib, thank you for those insights. I've been really enlightened by the things you've mentioned to us today. And of course, this is your field, so I expect you to deliver as usual. But that's Adib Sani, a foreign policy and security analyst, helping us appreciate the gravity of the issue. And indeed, for me, it is a problem. It is a big problem that we all need to begin to pay particular attention to. So here at MX24, we are starting the conversation. We are hoping that our colleagues in the other media houses will also follow suit. We should not wait for a catastrophe to happen, for something bad to happen before we all begin to have a conversation about how we can deal with this problem. So we are starting now, hoping that our colleagues will get on board and to continue to push the agenda to get, well, as Adib Sani will say, the IGP's helper to help us track those guns that are in the system and the like. Let me see if there are any last words from Mr. Chum. Mr. Chum, do you have any last words? We'll take them and then we'll wrap up on the show.
All right. Thank you very much. Right. It's also to say that from what Bureau of Public Safety has presented, and let me commend them for this work, which for me go a long way to complement what we do as a state agency. And I think that, the partnership we have always advocated for is what we are beginning to see in what a Bureau of Public Safety is doing. That notwithstanding, we also need to tell people that, look, it is just to give us information and certain data to point to what is happening and what government and the state agencies can do to reduce the proliferation within the system. The issues of insecurity is not something that we want to blow out of proportion, because really, from the records, it doesn't look like it from the way people want us to believe.
Okay.
The country is safe.
So things are getting better.
Sorry?
Things are getting better as far as security is concerned.
Very, very, yes, because, and like they all said, if you look at the integrated security management, the CCTVs that are being mounted are all part of efforts to ensure that crime is reduced to the barest minimum. Okay. If you look at the way the police has been retooled in recent times, it's one of the steps that's been taken, including the Small Arms Commission also. So these are all steps that are being taken to ensure that violence, crime in particular, is reduced to the barest minimum. And so we would make progress and we'll build on what has been done. But like we said, data and information is what we all require to take the necessary decisions that need to be taken. So thank you very much for bringing this up.
Thank you. Johnson Asante Chum is head of programs at the Ghana National Commission on Small Arms and Light Weapons. You just heard him speak there on the issue of proliferation of arms and whether or not Ghana as a country and as a people, we are sitting on a ticking time bomb. Also, you heard from Adib Sani, who is a foreign policy and security analyst. He also joined us in a conversation, as well as Nanaya Akwada, the executive director of the Bureau of Public Safety. And it was actually on the back of the report that had been issued by the BPS that we held this very conversation today. My name is Kwabna Chenchehine Boateng. This is MX24 TV. Show has been produced by Marie-France Fojo, Jonah Eledi, as well as NS Senanu Dovlo. Many thanks for watching.